What if various biblical scholars claim that events in the Middle East today were described in detail 2,600 years ago? What if some theologians suggest the current Israeli leadership might unknowingly be fulfilling ancient prophecies? And what if certain researchers point to Ezekiel chapters 38 and 39 as a blueprint for modern geopolitics? Today, the Sacred Archive explores what various sources call one of the most debated prophetic interpretations of our time.
The prophet Ezekiel, writing from Babylonian exile approximately 2,600 years ago, reportedly received visions about Israel's distant future. Various biblical scholars suggest these visions, particularly chapters 38 and 39, describe events that some believe are unfolding in our lifetime. Today, we examine what various theologians and researchers claim about the connection between ancient prophecy and modern Middle Eastern politics. Let's begin with what various biblical historians tell us about Ezekiel's context. Writing during Israel's darkest hour, the Babylonian captivity, Ezekiel allegedly prophesied not just about return from exile, but about events in what he called the latter days. Some scholars interpret this as the end times, others as simply a distant future. Various theologians note that Ezekiel's prophecies have both historical and potentially future applications. The famous Valley of Dry Bones vision in Ezekiel 37 interests various researchers. The prophecy allegedly describes bones coming together, receiving flesh, and breath entering them, Israel's resurrection as a nation. Some biblical scholars point to 1948's establishment of modern Israel as partial fulfillment. Various theologians suggest this sets the stage for subsequent prophecies, including the controversial Gog and Magog war. Now let's examine what Ezekiel 38 and 39 actually say, according to various translations. The text reportedly describes a coalition of nations coming against Israel in the latter years, when Israel dwells safely in unwalled villages. Various scholars note specific nations mentioned: Gog, a leader; Magog, a land; Persia; Cush, Put, Gomer, and Beth Togarmah. Some researchers attempt to identify these with modern nations, though interpretations vary significantly. The identification of these ancient names with modern nations divides scholars. Various interpreters suggest Persia clearly means Iran. Some claim Magog refers to Russia based on geographical and linguistic arguments. Others propose Turkey, Central Asian nations, or symbolic meanings. Cush and Put are often identified with African nations. Various theologians emphasize the speculative nature of these identifications. Consider what various political analysts observe about current Middle Eastern alignments. Some researchers note that nations historically hostile to each other now share common interests regarding Israel. Various sources point to Iranian influence in Lebanon, Syria, Yemen, and Gaza. Some suggest Russian involvement in Syria and Iran relationships. These modern alliances interest various prophecy watchers, though interpretations differ. The concept of Israel dwelling safely or securely puzzles various interpreters. Some suggest this refers to a future peace agreement. Others point to Israel's current military strength and defensive systems. Various scholars note Israel's remarkable prosperity despite regional tensions. The Hebrew word betach, translated as safely, can mean confidently or carelessly, according to various linguists. Let's explore what various theologians say about the timing question. Ezekiel allegedly places this conflict in the latter years and latter days. Some interpreters see this as end times language. Others suggest it simply means a distant future from Ezekiel's perspective. Various scholars caution against dogmatic date setting,
while acknowledging these phrases typically indicate eschatological significance in prophetic literature. The motivation described for this invasion interests various researchers. Ezekiel 38:12 allegedly mentions taking spoil and plunder. Some modern interpreters point to Israel's natural gas discoveries, technological prowess, or strategic location. Others suggest spiritual motivations, hatred of God's people. Various scholars see economic, political, and spiritual factors potentially converging. What various sources call the hooks in jaws imagery from Ezekiel 38:4 generates discussion. God allegedly says he will put hooks in jaws to bring Gog against Israel. Some theologians interpret this as divine sovereignty over evil intentions. Various scholars suggest God allows or orchestrates events for ultimate purposes beyond human understanding. This raises theological questions about free will and divine providence. The divine intervention described in these chapters stands out to various biblical scholars. Ezekiel reportedly describes earthquake, plague, flooding rain, hailstones, fire, and brimstone defeating the invaders. Some interpreters see this as supernatural intervention. Others suggest natural disasters with divine timing. Various theologians emphasize God fighting for Israel as the central theme. Let's examine what various researchers say about partial fulfillment theories. Some suggest the Six-Day War of 1967 partially fulfilled these prophecies. Others point to the Yom Kippur War of 1973. Various scholars propose these were precursors or types, not final fulfillment. The pattern of multiple fulfillments appears throughout biblical prophecy, according to various theologians. The role of modern Israeli leadership in these scenarios divides observers. Some suggest leaders unknowingly fulfill prophecy through political decisions. Others see conscious alignment with biblical narrative.
Consider what various military analysts note about Israel's defensive capabilities. The Iron Dome, David's sling, and arrow systems provide unprecedented protection. Some prophecy watchers see this as enabling the dwelling safely condition. Various researchers note Israel's qualitative military edge despite being outnumbered. These realities factor into various prophetic interpretations. The Abraham Accords signed in recent years interest various prophecy students. Some see normalized relations with Arab states as setting stages for prophecy. Others suggest these agreements delay or prevent prophetic wars. Various interpretations exist about whether peace agreements align with or contradict Ezekiel's scenario. Let's explore what various Christian denominations teach about these prophecies. Dispensationalist theologians typically see literal future fulfillment with ethnic Israel central. Reformed theologians often spiritualize these prophecies as fulfilled in Christ and the Church. Catholic and Orthodox traditions vary in interpretation. Various scholars acknowledge legitimate differences among sincere believers. The Palestinian situation raises questions various researchers grapple with. Ezekiel's prophecies focus on Israel but don't explicitly address Palestinian presence. Some interpreters see Palestinians among the hostile nations. Others distinguish between peoples and governments. Various Christian voices emphasize compassion for all parties while watching prophetic developments. Nuclear weapons and modern warfare challenge various traditional interpretations. Ezekiel describes ancient weapons: horses, swords, bows. Some literalists expect actual ancient weapons. Others see symbolic language for modern equivalents. Various scholars suggest the prophet described future events using familiar terms from his time. Consider what various historians document about previous invasion attempts. Multiple Arab-Israeli wars, Persian threats through proxies, and various coalition attempts have occurred. Some see these as failed attempts at Ezekiel fulfillment. Others view them as historical precedents building toward future climax. Various interpretations exist about historical patterns and prophetic fulfillment. The burning of weapons for 7 years mentioned in Ezekiel chapter 39 verse 9 puzzles various interpreters. Some suggest nuclear material providing energy. Others propose symbolic duration. Various scholars acknowledge this detail remains mysterious. The specific time frame suggests literal fulfillment to some, symbolic meaning to others. Let's examine what various Jewish scholars say about these passages. Many Jewish interpreters see Gog and Magog as representing all nations opposing Israel throughout history. Some connect it to Messianic-era events. Various rabbinical sources offer different perspectives from Christian interpretation while sharing the text's significance.
The burial of Gog's army described in Ezekiel 39 interests various researchers. 7 months of burial, a valley renamed Hamon Gog, and cleansing the land are described. Some see this as literal future events, others interpret it symbolically as complete defeat of evil. Various scholars note the detailed description suggests specific fulfillment. Current Iranian-Israeli tensions capture various prophecy watchers' attention. Some see Iran's nuclear program, proxy networks, and rhetoric as Ezekiel alignment. Others caution against newspaper exegesis, reading current events into prophecy. Various researchers emphasize the difference between possibility and certainty in prophetic interpretation. Consider what various peace activists say about prophecy and politics. Some worry prophetic interpretation influences policy dangerously. Others argue understanding religious motivations helps peace efforts. Various voices emphasize that believing prophecy doesn't mean promoting conflict. Many believers pray for peace while watching developments. The Russian involvement in Syria since 2015 excited various prophecy enthusiasts. Some saw fulfillment of the northern invasion route. Others noted Russia's limited goals. Various analysts distinguish between military presence and prophetic invasion. The complexity of modern geopolitics challenges simple prophetic applications. Let's explore what various environmental scientists note about Ezekiel's descriptions. Earthquake, unprecedented storms, and geological upheaval described could result from various causes. Some suggest nuclear war effects. Others propose solar events or climate extremes. Various researchers note the Mediterranean region's seismic activity. The rebuilding of the temple features in various end-time scenarios. Some connect Ezekiel's prophecies to temple reconstruction. Others see them as separate events. Various sources document preparations by certain Jewish groups. The Temple Mount's status remains one of the world's most sensitive issues. Turkey's role generates various interpretations. Some identify Turkey with Togarmah or Gomer. Others note Turkey's NATO membership complicates scenarios. Various analysts observe Turkey's evolving regional relationships. The Ottoman Empire's history with Israel adds historical context various scholars consider. Consider what various missionaries report from the Middle East. Christians in the region hold diverse views about prophecy and politics. Some see fulfillment approaching. Others focus on daily faithfulness regardless of prophetic timing. Various voices emphasize the gospel's priority over prophetic speculation. The global response described in Ezekiel interests various researchers. Sheba, Dedan, and merchants of Tarshish allegedly question the invasion but don't intervene.
Let's examine what various energy experts note about regional resources. Israel's natural gas discoveries, the Eastern Mediterranean's energy potential, and regional pipeline politics create new dynamics. Some prophecy watchers see spoil motivation. Various analysts emphasize economic factors in geopolitical calculations. The supernatural versus natural defeat described divides interpreters. Some expect direct divine intervention like Old Testament miracles. Others suggest natural events with divine timing. Various theologians emphasize God's sovereignty regardless of means. The spectacular defeat serves to glorify God according to various interpretations. What various linguists say about translation challenges matters. Hebrew poetry and prophetic language use metaphor, hyperbole, and symbolic imagery. Some argue for literal interpretation. Others emphasize literary genre considerations. Various scholars acknowledge translation and interpretation difficulties with ancient texts. The "Knowing the Lord" theme in Ezekiel 39 interests various theologians. God allegedly acts so nations know that I am the Lord. Some see evangelistic purpose in prophetic fulfillment. Ancient Near Eastern war accounts, coalition patterns, and geographical knowledge inform interpretation. Some findings support biblical accuracy. Others challenge traditional interpretations. Various scholars integrate archaeological insights with textual study. The question of conditionality arises in various discussions. Are these prophecies unconditional or dependent on human choices? Some see inevitability. Others suggest human response affects timing or details. Various theologians debate divine determinism versus human responsibility in prophecy. Let's explore what various revival historians document. Major spiritual awakenings often follow geopolitical upheavals. Some expect prophetic fulfillment to trigger revival. Various researchers note correlation between crisis and spiritual seeking. The relationship between prophecy and revival interests various scholars. As we conclude this exploration, various scholars emphasize humility in interpretation. Prophecy has surprised interpreters throughout history. Some caution against dogmatism while maintaining watchfulness. Various voices encourage biblical literacy, current awareness, and spiritual readiness regardless of specific scenarios. The question various researchers pose isn't whether biblical prophecy will fulfill. Believers affirm God's faithfulness. Rather, the challenge involves correctly understanding timing, participants, and details. Various sincere interpreters disagree on specifics while agreeing on significance. What remains clear from various sources? Ezekiel's prophecies continue capturing imagination and generating discussion. Whether current events represent fulfillment, precursors, or unrelated developments remains debated. Various believers watch with interest while maintaining focus on faithful living regardless of prophetic timing. If this prophetic analysis intrigued you, subscribe to the Sacred Archive for more biblical prophecy explorations. Share with others interested in understanding ancient texts and modern events. Comment your perspective below. The Sacred Archive, where ancient prophecies meet modern mysteries. Subscribe now.